blocks, maybe a cushion if you like having a cushion, something to lean on for balancing, and anything else that you like practicing with. And today, I'm going to invite you to focus on looking for, within every movement, every posture that we try, looking for what you enjoy about it, which sounds like I'm assuming you enjoy this. And I'm not actually. There may not be anything that you enjoy, but try paying attention to see in each pose or movement, is there something you can find to enjoy? And if there is something that you enjoy, try focusing on that. And if there's not something in it that you enjoy, ask yourself, how can I enjoy this? So that might mean changing it. That might mean taking something away, like subtracting something that's making you uncomfortable. It might mean adding something that you actually do enjoy to it, because maybe you're bored or whatever. And it might mean doing something entirely different, which is totally fine always in any class that we're doing together. And when you're ready, start with just a little check-in. So if you want to find mountain pose, it can just be like a loose, easy mountain pose, or any way you'd like to stand. And if you feel like closing your eyes to do this, you can go ahead and close your eyes. And maybe start by taking a super deep inhale and then sighing it out. And then just start to notice what you're feeling physically in your body. So you might notice if there are places that feel nice and limber, loose, places maybe you don't notice, places that maybe feel tight or tense or uncomfortable. You might notice how much energy you have. And maybe do like a little emotional check-in too. So how's your heart feeling today? And sometimes we kind of tend to overlook that in movement practices, but definitely keep that in mind. And then what is your mind doing? Is it busy and racing and full of thoughts and bringing you out of the moment? Or is it present, paying attention to what's here? And you don't have to try and change anything. You don't have to judge anything. Just noticing is the important part. Just use all this information to inform how you practice today. So taking care of yourself and really being true to what's going on. So if your eyes are closed, you can go ahead and open them. And if you have blocks, grab your blocks and have one in each hand if you have them. And if you don't have them, it's totally fine. You can just mime having blocks. But once you have your real or pretend blocks, find whatever stance feels comfortable so that you can start swinging your arms. And as you're swinging your arms, you can allow your body to turn with the momentum of your arms swinging. And as you're doing this, you might take some deep breaths. And notice that if you're allowing yourself to turn, it's very likely that your turning is including your hips and kind of including your legs to some degree. And it doesn't matter how hard you swing your arms or how high you swing your arms. It's just kind of noticing this movement that can happen to the degree that it's comfortable in your body. And once you've done it a few times that way, or a whole bunch of times that way, see if it's possible to stop your body from turning as you swing. And notice that in order to keep your body stable, your core has to switch on. And you might try going between allowing your body to swing a little and then stabilizing it a few times just to notice the difference. And is there anything that you can enjoy in this movement at all? If there is, try focusing on that. And then you can slow your arms down. Place your blocks aside. And from here, lift one of your knees and step it out. And then do the same thing with the other leg. And just take a few big kind of sweeping steps like this, not forcing it, but just noticing like, what is the range of motion that feels doable in your body, in your hips today? So you're mobilizing your hips, you're getting some synovial fluid moving, kind of warming up the muscles around there. And it requires some balance. It requires your core to stabilize you. Otherwise, you'd fall right over. And once you've done that a number of times, you can stop, come back to center. Maybe just notice for a moment what all that feels like. And when you're ready, make your way onto your back. So have a lie down on your mat and have, if you have a block, have your block close by so you can grab it. But once you're on your mat, if you want to pull your knees into your chest, you can do that. You could rock from side to side. If doing that is uncomfortable, windshield wipers might be a nice option. Placing your feet on the ground and dropping your knees from side to side. That's our windshield wipers. And then as you're ready, lift your feet and hands up into the air to the degree that that works. And wiggle your fingers and your toes. And you can take a peek up at your digits and notice if wiggling your toes is a little more challenging than wiggling your fingers or not. It is for me. If I never feel like I quite have as much control over my toes. And then you can rotate your ankles and your wrists a few times. And once you've done it in one direction, switch and go in the opposite direction. And again, notice, is there anything about this you enjoy? If so, focus on that. If not, is there something else you can do that you would enjoy? And as you're ready, you might consider shaking out your arms and legs a bit. And then drop your feet down to your mat and grab a block if you have blocks. And if you don't have blocks, that's okay. You can do the same thing, but without the block. So first, pull your right knee in, place the block on that and place your hand on that. And if you don't have a block, your hand will go directly on your knee or your thigh, kind of right above your knee. And then press them into each other. And notice what happens when you press your hand into your leg and your leg into your hand. Usually what happens is you can feel it in your core to some degree. Maybe you notice your lower back pressing down a little into your mat, into the floor. And from here, if you'd like to try hovering your left leg, you might bend that knee and bring that up. If you'd like to try bringing your right elbow towards your left knee and your left knee towards your right elbow, you might try that. And then maybe pulling them apart from each other to any degree and repeating a few times. So I've heard this called dead bug, which I always find funny because I don't think dead bugs actually move. But if you think about it, it's very similar to what we do in tabletop on hands and knees, the movement for tiger pose or Vyagrasana, which is also sometimes called bird dog. So once you've tried that a few times on one side, you can release that and switch sides. And if you want to shake anything out or try a few windshield wipers in between, you could do that. And this is one of those movements that asking yourself what you enjoy about this might get interesting. And I only say that because it tends to be uncomfortable sometimes. So when you're ready, bring your left knee up, place your block on that thigh, and place your right hand on the block or directly on your thigh if you're not using a block. Squeeze the two together and notice what that feels like. And you might ask yourself here, is there anything I enjoy about this right here? And there might be, and there might not be. And again, you can always change it. And then you might try lifting your right knee, maybe bringing your left elbow towards your right knee, and then pulling them apart from each other and doing that a few times. And if you're doing that, what can you enjoy about it, if anything? For me, it's a little, I don't necessarily enjoy the sensation. What I do enjoy is noticing that even though I find it challenging, I'm doing it. So, which might sound kind of funny, but. And as always, if a movement does not work for you, is not enjoyable, and you don't give a damn about the challenge, it's okay to change the movement, to try something else. But when you're ready, you can release that if you're still doing it. And from here, any movement that feels like it would do you some good. So maybe you pull your knees into your chest. Maybe you try some windshield wipers. Maybe you just stretch your limbs out and kind of wobble them around a little bit. But as you're ready, make your way up to seated. And flip yourself over into tabletop. So hands and knees. Once you're in tabletop and you're comfortable enough, see what it's like to slide your right toes out behind you and straighten that leg. So your toes are resting on the ground. And then float your leg up without arching your back. So maybe flex your foot and think about pressing back through the heel of that leg. And you could try lifting and lowering that leg a couple of times. Maybe trying to go pretty slowly. And then bring that knee back down and try the same thing on the other side. So sliding your left toes out, stabilizing through your core, and floating that leg up and then down a few times. And then bringing that knee down. And from here, you might press your hips back towards the left for a little bit of a stretch. And then come back up and press them back through the right. And then come back up. And if you're not using your blocks under your hands here, another thing you might try to do with your blocks would be to stack them up on the side of you so that they're next to your hip. And you can stack them in whatever way works so that they actually are right next to your hip. And this will be a way of sort of checking in to see if your body is moving from side to side as we do this lifting and lowering of our legs. So this will be on the leg that you're not moving. So we're going to start again on our right side. So place them next to your left hip if you're trying this. And you want them maybe an inch or so away from your hip. So then try sliding your right leg out again and lifting that leg to any degree. Maybe you try lifting and lowering. Notice if you bump into your blocks. You might also consider lifting your left arm to any degree. Maybe you lift and lower your leg and your arm a few times. And then another thing you might try is moving them out to the side. So sweeping your leg around laterally, either keeping your toes on the ground or hovering your toes. It doesn't matter, just kind of noticing that this creates a lot more movements, and maybe it might knock your blocks over if you're stacking your blocks. It might really engage your core. And you might not find anything you enjoy about it, so maybe you skip it. And once you kind of played with that a little bit, you can try it on the second side. You can take your time switching. If you're using blocks, again, you want to set them up about an inch or two away from your hip. So this time it'll be on the right hip. And then lots of options to play with. So you might slide your left leg back, maybe lift and lower that leg a few times. You might add your right arm. You might try moving your limbs out to the side to any degree. And again, is there anything to enjoy here? That would be the thing to focus on. And if not, how can you find something to enjoy by changing the movement in any way, even trying something completely different? And whenever you're ready, you can stop that. And maybe from here, you come into child's pose, or maybe you send your hips back into the side for a little bit of a stretch. or if there's anything else that feels restful and good, you can try that. So as you're ready, I'm going to invite you to come up to standing, and you can do that in any way you like. And one way you might consider coming up would be to come back into tabletop, walk your hands forward a bit, curl your toes under, lift your hips into downward dog, and take a moment in downward dog before then either walking your feet forward and coming into a forward fold, or walking your hands back and coming into a forward fold. And then maybe rolling up, maybe coming up with a flat back. Once you're vertical, take your time to just notice how you feel now that you're standing up after doing all that core work or whatever you were doing on the floor. So maybe take a few deep breaths. Maybe roll your shoulders back and kind of shake your hands out a little. And if it feels good, to drop your chin towards your chest and try a couple of arcs with your neck. You might roll your chin to one side and then to the other. And then as you're ready, step to one edge of your mat, or find a place where you can put your hand on something for balance if needed. And then send all of your weight into your right foot. And see if you can hover your left foot. And then lift your right knee up. And if possible, bring your left hand to your right knee to create some tension there. So you're pressing your hand into your knee and your knee into your hand. And just notice just creating that tension if you're trying it. Do anything for the balance. So sometimes it can help with balance, sometimes it doesn't help, and sometimes having your hand at a wall or a chair is the best thing you can do for yourself here. But once you've tried that, think back to our slow motion steps and see if it's possible to then step that upper leg out with control and place it on the floor, and then start transferring weight into it. And once you have weight in it, you can lift your other foot and step that in. And maybe try that again. So kind of, and it doesn't matter, this can be like done however works for you, but the idea is kind of cross body patterning. So bringing hand and knee in, but if bringing that hand in doesn't work, that's okay. And then slowly stepping out, maybe using that arm for counterbalance before then placing your foot down and then transferring the weight. So it's kind of a bigger movement than we usually do with these slow motion walks. But you might see how it works for you, if it works for you. And is there anything you can enjoy about this? And once you made your way to the other side of your mat, you can switch sides and try it on the other side. So again, the real goal here is to have control over your weight, the placement of your weight. So at any given point, notice where your weight is. And it's really easy to notice that when your foot is up off the floor. But once it's down, really paying attention to where the weight is becomes a little more challenging, I think. And once you've traversed your mat a few times, you can, or once one way and once the other, you can continue playing with that or any version of the slow motion walking or anything else that comes to mind. And another thing you might consider playing with would be coming into that balancing posture with one knee up, one hand either resting on your knee, or you could just kind of hold it in front of you and then see what it's like to find lateral movement while you're standing. So again, a chair or a wall might be useful here. So maybe resting a hand somewhere and seeing what it's like. This might be a lot of work for your core and for your standing leg. And you can get creative with that movement. You could do it in any way. You might keep your elbow and knee bent. You might lower your leg and lower your hand. Might raise them. See if it's possible to have a little bit of fun with the movement. And at any point, if you need to shake out that standing leg, go ahead and do that, because it really is, I think, quite a bit of work for that standing leg. And once you have had enough of that on one side, you can try it on the other side. So definitely any shaking, any kind of ease you need to find in between, if there's a stretch you want to try or anything before moving to the second side, take your time and then see what it's like. And it might be just a very little bit of movement. It might be a lot of movement. And of course, if anything hurts, that's not what we're looking for. So finding a way to explore the idea of some movement while balancing on one leg is essentially what we're looking for here. Maybe that's through introducing some type of lateral movement in these two arms. No, they're not arms. There's only one arm. In these two limbs, one arm, one leg. And noticing that with opposite arm and leg used as counterbalance, sometimes that gives us some leverage to right ourselves as we wobble in and out of balance. So make sure you're doing things that your body won't be angry with you later for. That's always kind of a challenge. Sometimes it's tough to know in the moment. And if that's the case for you, it's definitely a good idea to do less than you think you can withstand. So whenever you're ready, you can take a break, pause, shake it out, walk it out, One thing that I like doing here, if you like it, you could try it, would be trying these circles with your hips. So keeping soft knees, just kind of rotating your hips around in a circle. And once you've gone a few times in one direction, trying it out in the other direction. And then you might take a moment to notice what you're feeling and where. And if, like me, you feel like your quads might enjoy a stretch, you might try a standing quad stretch. So maybe place your hand somewhere, lift the opposite foot, take hold of that foot, and squeeze it in towards your butt, aiming your knee down. Maybe come back to your breath here and see if it's possible to breathe pretty freely and slowly. And when you're ready, release that and switch legs. So place your opposite hand at your point of balance. And when you're ready, release that. And from here, come down onto your mat. Unless there's anything else you want to do standing. If you want to shake things out, you can shake things out. As you're ready, make your way down into a seated position on your mat. Actually, come into a lying position on your mat when you're ready. So come into constructive rest posture with your feet on the floor, knees bent. And when you're ready, flex your right foot and place your right ankle over your left knee. And start gently pressing your knee away from your body. So notice if you can feel anything in your right hip here. And you can stay there if that feels good. You might also consider lifting your left knee up towards your body, maybe interlacing your hands behind your hamstring on that left leg or around the front of your knee or shin. So this is Suchirandrasana. And the aim of this is to find a stretch in your outer right hip. So notice if you can feel that, and it's okay if you can't. Many people have a hard time finding that stretch sensation, but you don't have to force anything, and you don't want to crank your body around too hard or anything. And again, maybe come back to that idea of, is there anything I can enjoy here? You might think about extending your exhales out a little bit longer than your inhales. You might even rotate your left ankle if it's up in the air. And when you're ready, you can drop that down and switch sides. So your right foot will be on the ground, flex your left foot, bring your left ankle over your right leg. Start to press your left knee away from your body to the extent that that works for you. And you're, again, looking for a stretch in your outer left hip this time. So you might keep your foot on the ground and you might lift your knee towards your body. Either one is fine. And if you're lifting your knee towards your body, you might bring your left hand through that space between your legs, and maybe interlace your hands behind your hamstring on your right leg or around the front of your shin. And again, if you're lifting that leg, you might rotate your right foot. If you're not, you're probably not going to be doing that. But maybe come back to your breath. Focus on taking long, slow breaths. Maybe extending your exhales out a little longer than your inhales. When you're ready, you can release that. And if there's any other movement you'd like to take before heading into Shavasana, you can do that. But if you're ready to head into Shavasana, find a resting position that feels comfortable. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, you might just rest your gaze somewhere. And once you're comfortable in Shavasana, you might consider focusing either on your breath or a sensation that you're feeling or a sound you're hearing. If you find that's useful. Notice if your mind is wandering. Maybe start to deepen your breath a little bit. Come back into the present moment. You might wiggle your toes and your fingers a little bit. And take your time opening your eyes if they're closed, and deciding if you'd like to transition out of Shavasana, maybe come into a seated position. But if you're lying and you'd like to stay lying down, you could do that. Or wherever you are, take a moment to find one reason to extend some gratitude to yourself, to appreciate yourself. And then maybe think back through practice and consider if there was anything that you actually really enjoyed. And if you can pinpoint what that was, maybe make a mental note to try and bring more of that into your practice in the future. And then just a moment to acknowledge the practice of yoga, which originated on the Indian subcontinent thousands of years ago and withstood colonization and the British trying to stamp it out. But so many brave people kept it alive and were so generous in sharing it with the rest of the world so that we could benefit too. And thanks for practicing with me today.